All right, the Final Four is set at Homestead today, and only one driver is going to walk away with the 2017 NASCAR Monster Energy Cup Series Championship. We've got all of our updated picks, futures, everything that we've worked on all year. CJ Radun and I are going to go through it. We're going to get you ready for the race today right here as Prime Sports NASCAR and the Prime Sports Radio Network starts now. Is in bloom, the transmissions will resume. Now try to push. All right, it's Sunday, the final race day for 2017, the 19th of November 2017. I'm your host, Greg DePalma, and we've got a special show for you today. We have already previewed this race and updated everything going on in the NASCAR Monster Energy Cup Series a couple times this week already with CJ Radun and with Eric Smith. So that's already in the books. That is available on demand if you want to check that out. What we did want to do in this particular show, though, was just welcome in CJ Radun, who is a RotoWire.com writer for NASCAR and F1. He's been with me all year on the picks. We had a new formula we were trying out, and it all culminates here today. So, CJ, good talking to you again. A few hours away, 3 hours and change, I guess. When is the race going to start?
3 o'clock. So we got a couple hours to go. It's one of those late afternoon starts. They like to run it into the dark here at Homestead for the finale.
All right. So now we, of course, been on the air for a few years, and we've been going through the previous years. We were going through the race day picks and all of that, and we realized that it just wasn't working out in NASCAR. It's a very difficult sport in order to try and make any money off of it, and for your weekly picks. Fantasy is a different story, of course, but we decided that we were going to try something new this season to see if we can make a difference as far as the future combination and the picks. Taking a look at your season to date now, just kind of just shows you how difficult it is, because you've hit 22 of 35 winners, which is a pretty crazy percentage. 22 of 35, and yet, based on $100 to invest in for every race, you only came ahead with barely $600. I mean, that is just nuts. I mean, if you were 22 of 35 in any other sport that had odds in it, like, say, golf, you'd be like a millionaire. So for NASCAR, plus $600 is just, I mean, who in the right minds would want to even take a chance? I mean, I'm like minus 300. Who would want to even take a chance on anything like that? So that's why we put the futures in, which are a $3,500 investment as of right now. So the idea is to see if we could actually make anything out of it. And just taking a look at your futures right now, the best chance you're going to have is going to be, looks like Kyle Busch, right?
Correct.
All right. So if Kyle Busch wins the race right now, before you give your final picks for the race, and if you want to add in any futures, you're looking at, he's 31.60 in the investment. So that would put you a little bit, as of right now, about $800. But again, this is because it's another favorite. This is because Kyle Busch has been a favorite, and even though one of the favorites that you had at the very top was Kyle Larson, so Larson would have been a little bit better for you.
He definitely would have been, and I think that's the main reason, throughout the season why it's been kind of a struggle. It's been very good, as you said, of picking the winners on a weekly basis, but those futures, man, everybody moved towards really quickly. Martin Truex Jr., Kyle Larson, and Kyle Busch, probably within, like 2 or 3 races in, and when in the playoff format the way it is, when you got somebody who was an early season favorite like Kyle Larson, their fortunes change, they get knocked out, and there goes a significant chunk of your investment, and then you're left with two very narrow favorites, where actually they were less than 2 to 1, I think, for vast majority of the season.
So I'd have to think, because Truex is 2 to 1 and Busch 2 to 1 right now for the futures. So so there's no way Now let's see here. Again, I guess what you could do is you could still go with Truex to make sure to ensure that you stay out ahead, because you are at about what, almost 2,600 invested in Truex,
Yep.
which is only a few $100s away from your future from your total. So it may not be a bad idea to decide that as well. Truex, of course, is going to start in the front row. All three of his practice speeds were the best, first, second, third, and so that's why he's the favorite. Now he's the overwhelming favorite of this race at 2-1. Where Kyle Busch. Now, if you wanted to go in with Kyle and try to make a really good investment, because you're going to you're going to have I don't know, maybe you have a better chance of making a little bit more money with Kyle, because he's 4-1 to win the race, as well as 2-1 to win the championship, and his qualifying and practice runs were just fine. Third starting position, fastest in first practice, and fastest 10-lap average in happy hour.
Yeah, and again, you've got these two guys who early in the season started hitting it right. Busch, even though he wasn't getting the results we all knew that he eventually would, he was fast every single weekend, so his odds came down really quickly despite the poor results. And then Truex picking up all those stage points, everybody jumped on that really quickly. So you got to choose choose early and choose often, apparently. But you're right, with the speeds this weekend, there's really not a whole heck of a lot to distinguish between the two of them. Busch has been in this situation before. On a winner takes all kind of afternoon, there's probably nobody better than him. Maybe Kevin Harvick, but Kevin Harvick's right up there too. So, trying to flip the coin between Busch and Truex, I think at this point it literally is a coin flip.
Yeah. So again, look, at this point in time, the only way it benefits you if Truex wins the race and the championship, and you don't take them, then you end up, then you actually end up minus.
Yep.
So you would have to decide, do I, how much? And again, this is obviously for fun. So you would just have to say, okay, do I want to just make sure I even myself out, or if this was for real? Do I want to, because if, let's say Kyle wins. All right, so if Kyle wins, we'll just add it up. If Kyle wins and you invest 100 in the 2-1 and 100 in the race at 4-1, just all in on Kyle. That's 400. That's at $600 extra dollars. So that would then put you, let's see, at 600 extra. You already are 160, 250 up. So you would be at what, 850-ish?
850. Yep.
Okay, so all right. Whereas if you did Truex, that would be 2-1, so that's $400. So that's 29. I mean, that would be 20. Yeah. So you would be up 70?
Yeah, effectively break even.
Yeah. Okay. So there you go. So that's a decision you have to make, because or if you and if you do that, if you go with Truex and Kyle wins, and you go all in, then you basically go up. That's the 250. Okay, so that's a decision you have to make. Now, for me, where am I at? Again, because I didn't get all of the wins that you did, I have minus. So I'm $1,000 pretty much more up in negative balance at 3,885. Even though, again, same thing. This is what we talk about. I mean, out of all the picks I had, even though I was negative 385, I hit 13 winners and had 12 runner-ups. So if you look at the futures, I got really beat when Hamlin got beat. I mean, that was a killer for me, because I had Hamlin invested $5,100.
Sure.
So that would have been big for me, but Hamlin screwed me up. So that got beat bad. But the other one is Harvick. So I've got Harvick at 4,050. I have Kyle at 3,940. And Truex is at 2,940. So, but again, I'm more of a minus than you are. So I'm at minus 3,885. So I'm not even going to waste my time with Truex. So it's either Harvick or Kyle, and at this point in time, if I basically don't even touch the race today, and don't even invest anything, which we can't do because we have to definitely do the picks. Then if Kyle or Harvick win the championship, I pretty much break even after all that craziness. So
13 wins is a good number.
Yeah, 13 wins is a good number, yes. And yet I'd have to break even by all this money in future invested, which again is $4,000 sitting there for both drivers. All right, so let's. And by the way, Harvick. When you look at Harvick, Harvick is. I think he's the clear value here. He's 6-1 to win the race, and he's 3-1 to win the championship. He's starting ninth, which, as we said the other day, there's nothing wrong with starting ninth at Homestead. And even though his practice speeds, second and third, aren't very good, when you look inside the numbers, his second and third practice speeds were both solid as far as 10-lap averages. So all of his runs were fine. Plus, out of all these drivers, as we mentioned the other day, he's the best one here. He's got 9 straight top 10s at Homestead, including 6 times in those 9. He's finished third or better with 2 runner-ups and a win.
Yeah, Harvick, without a doubt. If I was coming into the day clean, so I didn't have the baggage of all the picks and, my negative balance from the futures going forward, I would definitely be putting it all on Harvick. I mean, he's extremely good at this track, like you said, very consistent throughout the past few years. He's been in this situation before as well, just like Kyle, and got the job done. And he's showing speed early this weekend as well, despite the fact that he's not got a Toyota underneath him. So all of those things point to a really great afternoon for him.
So you still make out if you just go ahead and don't do futures and then just put the money on Harvick to win the race.
I don't know if that's going to happen, but we'll see.
That's true. Yeah, I mean Harvick would have to win the race though. Yeah, if Harvick doesn't win the race, then you're definitely behind on Truex, and you break even with Kyle if Kyle was the one that wins. You basically have to decide: do I go? I mean, obviously, neither of us want Keselowski to win, and I think we're okay with that.
Yep.
Because he's 9-1 to win the race, 5-1 to win the championship. He starts fifth, which is fine, but none of his practice speeds were inside the top 10.
No, he's just not making the top headline speeds that Truex and Busch are putting in, and then Harvick not being terribly far off of them. Keselowski coming in as the underdog, he really has to rely on strategy. He's got to have Paul Wolf call the race of a lifetime today.
Also, as far as this race, now Kyle Larson's got some good 10-lap averages combined with some decent top 10s in practice and qualifying. Very similar to Harvick. I'm surprised Larson's a 5-1 shot and Harvick's a 6-1 shot. I don't know what that's about. Now Larson was second in this race last year. Hamlin's also interesting because, and again, look, when I said, if you pick Harvick to win at 6-1, I'm just throwing a name out there based on the odds, and he's in the championship. But you could do the same thing with Hamlin, and Hamlin's 6-1, and he's really fast. I mean, he's on the pole. All of his practice speeds top 5. He's got a best 10-lap average in number 2, which was also the fastest. And he's got 6 top 10s in his last 8 races at Homestead with 2 wins.
Yeah, Hamlin would be the one. If you're looking outside the championship contenders, I think certainly one to very much keep an eye on, even more so than Kyle Larson. I think Kyle Larson's good, but Hamlin topping a couple practices, being on pole, taking Truex out, putting him second on the front row there. I think that's a fantastic afternoon for him. In store, he's been racing really well. I think that whole beef that he's had with Chase Elliott has kind of inspired him. He's driving much better, and as long as he stays away from Elliott on track, I think he'll have a decent afternoon.
Now, the Chevys have been really slow so far, which is another reason why I'd stay away from Kyle Larson. I mean, if I'm going to go with a Chevy, then I would probably just roll the dice on either Chase Elliott or Dale Earnhardt. Earnhardt, because he actually showed some speed in practices sessions 2 and 3. He was the second fastest driver in second practice. We haven't seen that in a while. And he's 44-1. So, I mean, actually, you could put $100. We could both put $100 on Dale Jr. to win the race, and then we'd win. And then we wind up actually being just fine. Take the 36th race. Not that we're not going to be fine anyway, but so we could do that. But what do you think about Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s chances?
I think it's fantastic that he had a top 5 run in practice. I'd like to see a little bit more consistency throughout the weekend. He's got a horrible starting spot all the way back there on row 12. So, and like you said, the Chevrolet just hasn't been. They've made appearances in the top 5 throughout the weekend. You know, 1 or 2 drivers here or there, but nothing like the consistency that we're seeing from Toyota, taking up the first 4 spots on the grid, and then you got 2 Fords right behind them. The highest Chevrolet is Kyle Larson starting 7th. Well, I like Earnhardt, and I think he's probably in store for a top 5. You know, if everything goes his way, coming out and actually win the race, it would take, you know, the late race caution, some weird things to happen on strategy and crashes, that type of thing, which is entirely possible.
Sure.
But, you know, it's going to take a lot of things outside of his control to get up there.
Yeah, we can absolutely see that happening. It happened last year, so anything is possible. What about Matt Kenseth's chances to win back-to-back? He starts 4th. And his best practice run was in Happy Hour. He's got 6 top 10s in his last 7 races at Homestead.
Yeah, I would choose Hamlin before I chose Kenseth, but with his win last week, you know, he's got a lot of momentum right behind him. He's been fast throughout. I mean, this entire season, it's not like he's been slow at any given time. So he can always come out and be a threat, and he's been pretty consistent throughout this weekend, which I like to see. And the Toyota's being strong as well. I think it's going to give him a little bit of an extra edge. But, you know, the two, looking at Hamlin and Kenseth, I'd probably go with Hamlin, just to be honest with you. I think Hamlin's just got that little bit of extra edge throughout this weekend that might serve him a little bit better throughout the race today.
And what about any of the other drivers? You got Jimmy Johnson looking slow. You have Blaney looked better as the practice sessions wore on. He's starting 11th. He's 22-1. He was 5th, very similar to Jones. Jones, who's 33-1, will start 14th, and he had a top 5 practice run. So what about Blaney and Jones, 22-1 and 33-1?
You know, Blaney, actually, you're right. He really did come on stronger as the weekend went on. So he's got a top 10 car, I think. I think Eric Jones, for whatever reason, is a little bit more able to get it working during the race. He's been a little bit behind the ball so far this weekend, so nothing terribly impressive. So of the two, I'd probably end up going with Blaney, to be honest with you. I mean, it's his last ride with Wood Brothers before he switches over to Penske. He's been fast throughout the year. He's got a race win under his belt. It's a 1.5-mile oval where this team happens to do pretty well in comparison to the Toyota team. So I think he's got a lot in him. Eric Jones could end up being the spoiler of that, though, just because, again, a 1.5-mile track with Jones and his Toyota, he seems to always rise to the occasion on those. But, you know, sitting here right now, I would go with Blaney.
And anybody else? Kurt Busch is probably the only other driver that looks like he could be interesting at 55-1 because he starts 8th and all 3 of his practice runs were in the top 10.
Yep, he's a good one. I would also throw in Jamie McMurray, to be honest with you.
Okay.
He's been one that has been quietly surprising throughout the last couple rounds throughout the playoffs. Certainly not to the point of teammate Kyle Larson the early part of the season. He's not making those kind of waves, but he's been steadily improving, building his momentum, and I think he's ready to be kind of inside the top 5. And if he's there with the crazy endings that we're used to seeing, you know, certainly he's going to be in contention. But I think more so, it's probably good just for him to build that momentum, get the team off on the right foot into the winter, and make the changes and come back even stronger in 2018.
All right. So anything else? I mean, we heard Danica Patrick. So Danica Patrick is what? What's she doing now?
So she is done with racing full time. She made that announcement, I think it was on Friday. So her last 2 races are going to be 2018. She's going to do a run at the Daytona 500 and another final run at the Indy 500. Some teams, she said, are in discussions with her to do that. Nothing confirmed. So interesting to say, you know, I'm going to do those 2 races next year, but not have anything lined up to actually announce that you're doing those 2 races and with whom, whose car. Penske already said no, so she won't be driving for him. Ganassi, though, is in the rumor mill as somebody that might be willing to give her a car for each of those races.
Okay. All right. So let's go with the strategy that you have decided to go with, and this is it. So anybody wants to know, here are your picks. Start with the race. Who are you going to go with?
For the race, I'm going to go Kyle Busch. I just can't see anybody in this situation having, the tenacity, the drive to dig deeper, the just over aggressiveness, but yet able to keep the wheels underneath the car and keep everything going forward in the proper direction. Kyle Busch, without a doubt, is my choice today.
All right, are you doing anything else?
100 on Kyle Busch for both futures and race.
So you're going to go with Kyle. And again, you're at 3160 in the futures. So if Kyle does win the race, then with the futures at 2-1 and the race at 4-1, you'd be looking at an additional 600. That would put you at about plus. That would put you if you do the race first, that would put you at about 1,000 on the race, and the futures you would then be at. What is it? 2-1? Yeah, 2-1. So you'd be at 3360. So 3360. All right. So then you're right now at. So that would put you what? How many up? 800?
About, yep.
850, something like that?
850, just shy of 900. Yep.
Okay. So you're going to. That makes the most sense. Because, yeah. I mean, as we talked the other day, I mean, Kyle. I agree with you. If we're just going picks alone, I'm going with Kyle. My preseason pick to win the championship, and no reason for me to go away from him now, especially in this race. Same reason that you thought of. He's the man, so I'm going to go with Kyle. But for my picks and my strategy, because his odds are so low, and even if I don't touch him and he wins, it's still going to be close enough. So I would end up, $100 in the negative. And because of that, I'm going to go ahead and just roll the dice to try to make some money, just like you are, to try to, instead of breaking even one way or less, why don't I just go for it? So I'm going to put 70 on Harvick to win the race at 6-1. And, of course, I've got Harvick at 4,050 already invested to the race. So I'm going to put another 70 on him to win the race at 6-1. And then, by the way, I'm also going to put 20 on Elliott at 18-1. And then I'm going to put 10 on Junior at 44-1. So why not? One of us might as well have money on Junior. And even though Elliott's been slow, I mean, Elliott really wasn't all that great last week either. And yet he found a way. So I know he wasn't as slow, and Chevy didn't have as many problems. But he found a way, and sometimes drivers just find a way when they're dialed in, like Elliott is right now, and he is 18-1. And then in my future play, I am going to go ahead and, as I said, I'm going to go all in on Harvick, sitting there. He's a little bit more on the odds at 3-1, so I'm going to go Harvick 100, 3-1. All right, so Harvick gives me the best chance to make some cash based on the 6-1 and the 3-1 on the future and the race respectively, compared to Kyle. But I think we're both on the same page, though, at least as far as Kyle Busch is concerned. If you're just coming into this race, even Steven, with Kyle Busch sitting there at 4-1 to win the race, and the fact that, once again, as we said the other day, since this new format over the last 3 years, the driver who has won the championship has won the race.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be very close throughout the afternoon between Truex and Busch, but you think about Kenseth and Hamlin being up there along with him. He's got teammate power. And, Truex has played the season conservatively, racking up those stage points. How's it going to be when he's got to, make the gamble at the right time to be able to get his way up front? And Busch has been used to doing that throughout the year, so I think he's just got it in his back pocket a little bit more.
And also keep in mind, I mean, even though we're not going with Truex, we both, did invest decently with Truex this year as well.
Absolutely.
You had about 2,600 on him. I had about 3,000 invested on him. So yeah. The other thing too to keep in mind, this was the first time we were trying this out to see how it works, and even if it's all you're doing is doing it for fun and involve yourself in the races each week, whether and if you got the money to waste, to play, have fun with it, if you're down $500 or $1,000, not the end of the world. So trust me, if this was real, we would be rooting if we saw Martin Truex Jr. Up against Brad Keselowski at the end, we would be rooting hard for Martin Truex Jr. to win, because we want to make sure that our investment, because The difference is for you. For me, the difference is $1,300.
Yeah.
What's the difference for you?
I can't remember,
Let's
to be
see.
honest.
Your
'cause I can't
difference
remember how many I've got on
is
Kozlowski.
your difference is about 800. So that's a difference. So it does show you that even if you wind up losing, you definitely want to lose less when it's all said and done. So anything else regarding the race? Anything else that you want to share for the audience?
No, I think this is going to be, setting up to be a fantastic race. We talked a little bit about whether or not the series is going to be able to maintain having the championship winner win the race as well. And I think with these 4 guys sitting up there, all being as fast as they are, I think we're going to see the winner of the championship win today's race as well. I think it's going to be a good afternoon.
All right. Well, that would be cool. I'm sure NASCAR would be stoked if they can get that happen again. And we're doing the show on Monday at what time?
2 o'clock.
2 o'clock. So CJ and Eric will join me 2 o'clock on Monday. We'll wrap up the race and the season and our coverage until we start preparing for the 2018 season. So CJ, appreciate it. But we'll wrap it up on Monday. Enjoy the race today.
Have a good one. I'll talk to you tomorrow.
Thank you. All right, that's CJ Radune, and that's it. So I'm not going to be posting any reports. There's no reason to. The reports are all right here in the show. We used to do the race day shows last year, every single race day, Saturday or Sunday. So we didn't have to. Well, I think we did some of the reports we posted, but not as many times as we had to post this year since we weren't doing the race day shows. Okay, so that'll do it. By the way, we'll see you. I think that show is the next show on the network. No, wait, it's not. I got a 1 o'clock show. I got an OFN meeting room show interview talking MAC football with the MAC championship situation possibly decided on Tuesday. Then we'll have our NASCAR show at 2 o'clock. Then our Jet show at 5. And then our R-Lads Football Network weekend review show at 6. So 4 shows tomorrow on the Prime Sports Radio Network in conjunction with R-Lads, 2 of those shows. We'll see you at 2 o'clock, though, on Monday as we wrap up the 2017 season in NASCAR. For CJ Radune and Greg DePalma, thanks for tuning in to Prime Sports NASCAR. We'll see you next time.